Good morning. Letting Facebook get caught up a little bit. What a beautiful, beautiful winter morning it is in Skytruck, Oklahoma. Good morning, Joan. Love to see Joan on here. It tickles my heart. She's one of my heroes. I always tell her when I grow up, I want to be just like her. She's a mighty, mighty woman of God. And I love you, Joan Montfort. Beyond words, I love you. January 26, 2017. We're reading in Exodus chapter 2 and 3. Powerful, powerful book of the Bible. So we're reading about the life of Moses. And Moses is living in Pharaoh's home. He's been brought up as a grandson to Pharaoh. Pharaoh's daughter had saved Moses from the Nile River when Pharaoh, her father, had ordered all the males of the Israelites to be killed and to be drowned in the Nile River. His mama saved him. So he's grown up. He knows that he's not an Egyptian. He knows he's different. I believe deep inside of him, he knew he had an extremely strong call on his life. He felt that call. It was like, I had somebody this week, my good friend Angie, tell me that when we were discussing what the word launch means for us for this year, she said it's like those great big 747 jet engines on a plane out there, and you've already taxied down the runway and you're right at the end of the runway getting ready to take off, and they give it full power, and those engines build up that power before they ever take off. And that's just how we feel for this year, because we know that God is launching us through his word and to something brand new this year. Brenda, 2017 is going to be our best year yet. So anyway, that's what I believe that Moses was feeling around this time. He knew, he's been trained in the Egyptian army. He's been trained by Pharaoh's best. And he goes out and he sees somebody mistreating one of the Hebrew people, one of his own people. And he looks around and he doesn't see anybody, and he kills that man. He kills that Egyptian and he buries him in the sand. And then the next day he's out there doing what he does every day, and he's defending the Hebrews once again. They're fighting among each other, and he gets onto them. And they look at him and say, "Oh, what are you going to do to us? Kill us like you did yesterday?" And he knew that he'd been found out. And he knew that Pharaoh was going to want to kill him. And he ran. Now, this is a picture of our life, guys. It is. It's a picture of the call that every one of us has. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ, you've got a call on the inside of yourself that you know you're supposed to be doing something. You know there's a purpose for you. You're called. And instead of waiting on God, on God's timing, and God's timing is always perfect, we get ahead of ourselves, we get in our flesh. There's no other way to explain what happened with Moses when he saw that man brutalizing his fellow kinsman. He got in his flesh, his anger rose up, and he struck him down and he killed him. And that's what we do to our dreams when we get ahead of God. It's just like that big jet airplane at the end of the runway, and those engines are full blast, ready to propel us off into the air. It still amazes me that we can get those things off the air, that God has given us the technology that a great big multi-thousand-pound airliner can fly. How can we think that there's a limit to what we can do when we watch an airplane go across the air? But I'm chasing rabbits. So That's just what it is. We get this feel, and we know we're ready to launch. We're ready to propel off into the destiny God's called us to. And we rise up in our flesh, and we get ahead of God, and we then, in our minds, not God's mind, but in our minds, we've killed our dream. Oh, that's exactly what Moses did. He thought, well, I've ruined it. I can't do what I'm supposed to do now. Oh, I'm such a failure. I'm a murderer. And Proverbs, I think it's 20, tells us that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So look at your lifestyle. What is your lifestyle like? Are you out being successful? Are you out changing the kingdom day by day? Are you out carousing? Are you out getting drunk? Are you out setting a bad example for those that are always watching? We talk about it all the time. All the time we talk about somebody's watching. Somebody's watching you and the example you set, and you are the Christ in this world. As he is, so are you. But are your actions reflecting who you are? Because you are the Christ in this world. You are the Christ in this world. Is your actions reflecting that? Or are you giving off a bad example? Things that somebody that's not as knowledgeable as you, that doesn't have the revelation knowledge of you, looks at you and go, well, she does it, so I can do it. That's what Moses did. He rose up in his flesh, and he couldn't quite grasp that it was supposed to be him, and he jumps ahead of God in his dream, and then he allows that thought process to kill his dream, the call of God on his life. And he leaves, and he goes into the desert, and he lives 40 years in the desert, away from all of his people, alone. He just exiled himself. Now, God didn't send him out there. He went. He isolated himself from everything good. He isolated himself from his family who loved him. He went to a foreign land. You know what? I've done that in my life. I've gone to a foreign land, not a foreign country, but to a foreign land to live, and I isolated myself away from my shame, away from the bad example I had set for people, away from the bad decisions I had made, instead of being grounded in who I am in Christ and staying the course and knowing that my God is bigger than any failure that I might perceive in myself. He uses it all for the good anyway. So Moses is now out, self-exiled, out into the wilderness. He's gone to a foreign land. He meets a foreign family. He marries, and he's out tending sheep. And then I want to read this to you. Let's start in Exodus chapter 3, verse 1. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I'll turn around and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned up. But caught his attention. Why didn't it burn up? When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, he had to turn towards God. He had to turn towards the bush. If he'd went on by it, this says, when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am, here I am. Those are three of the most powerful words you can ever utter to your Father God. Here I am. Here I am, Lord, use me. Then he said, do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place which you are standing is holy ground. Do you know we stand before the burning bush right now today? Everybody on this video is standing before the burning bush today. Do you realize that the land that you walk on right now, where you're standing, where you're sitting right now, is holy ground? It's holy ground. It's holy ground. You have to believe it, and you have to see it in your imagination. But we're standing on holy ground, and this is what he told Moses. You're standing on holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Why was he afraid? God is love. He wasn't afraid because of who God is. He was afraid because of the actions he had taken. Now, if you were to stand before God, which we do every single day, and give an account of just the last 6 months of your life, okay, I won't finish that. I want to get to my point. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings. He knows your sufferings. He knows your sufferings. And I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of Egyptians. Now listen to this. Listen to this. This is, okay, here is the thing God spoke to Elizabeth today. January 26, 2017. I wrote it down. This is in my journal, guys. I know their sufferings. Now okay, let's just go back to verse 7. I want you to get this. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, and a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites. And now, behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I, God said, have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh. And the rest of this whole text today in the Old Testament is Moses arguing about why he should send him. You know what happened in this moment? In this very moment, which I do so often, God is speaking to you. We've talked about that for over a year. God speaks to you all the time. And God had to get a burning bush to get Moses' attention that he was speaking to him. See, I believe he was speaking to Moses way before the burning bush. Moses felt that call. That call never went away, even though Moses believed the lie that he had messed it up. God was speaking to him, but he had to have the burning bush experience. And then he tells him, I am going to deliver my people, Moses, but I'm going to use you. But all of the arguments is me, I can't deliver them. I mean, it'll say that. Read it. I can't deliver those people away from Pharaoh. Who am I? Lord, not me. I mean, there wasn't even an argument here. There shouldn't have been if he had taken the time to listen to the words. I have come down, said God, to deliver them out of the hand. God was going to deliver them. God did deliver them, not Moses. Moses was just the vessel he was going to use. It never was about the might of Moses. It never was about what he was capable of doing. It was never about whether he spoke eloquently enough. It was about God was going to do something, and he needed a vessel, and he picked Moses. And that's the way God does everything, is he picks a vessel. He picks someone in the likeness of himself who is one with him, and he, in his power, works through us to do whatever it is he's called us to do. Whatever it is. It's his power. It's his might in us. And yet we get in our flesh and we argue. First of all, we don't even listen. If Moses had listened and heard the words that I, God Almighty, have come down and I will deliver the people, then what was there for Moses to even fear? What was there to argue about? He didn't listen. He made it about him. He made it about his flesh instead of the God who was guiding him. And that's what we do. We make it about our flesh instead of the God who's guiding us. As he is in this world, so are we. And when we listen with our spiritual ears, there is absolutely nothing to argue about. You know, it rises up in me in Walmart. I use this example all the time because God does this with me a lot. And he says, you know, I'll never forget the time. I was in the Walmart parking lot. This has just been recently, fairly recently. And boy, you know, I'm just going to run in there. I don't like to shop anywhere. I sure don't like to shop in Walmart. And it's nothing against Walmart. It's me. And, you know, there's crowds in there. It takes forever to get through the line, and I'm in a hurry. And so Tom and Carrie and I pulled up to Walmart, and we're going to run in and get what we need and run back out. And my eyes turn to this car in the parking lot as we pull in, and I keep looking, and over in the passenger side, I see a lady over there slumped over. And I get out, I watch her. Now I can see she's crying, and I walk right by her, and I don't get a few steps, and I tell Tom, I can't, I got to go back. Now see, God was speaking to me way before I ever got to the Walmart parking lot. He certainly was speaking to me the moment I drove in, and he got my eye on that vehicle, and I saw that she was slumped, and I knew what I was supposed to do. I knew what I was supposed to do, but I was in a hurry, and I made it about me, and I rushed, and I walked on by, and it was strong enough that I knew I had to turn around. And I went back, and she was sobbing, and I frightened her when I walked up. And, you know, she had lost her kitty cat that morning, and she was crying, and she was deeply distressed. And so I spoke with her for a few minutes, and then I asked her if I could pray with her, and she said yes, and she stuck her hand out, and I prayed over that woman, and I prayed with that woman, and it was tender, and I'm still talking about it however many weeks and months later it is, and I'm using it as the example about how we get into the flesh, how Moses was in the flesh, and he wasn't listening, and it took a burning bush experience for him to listen after he had already gotten ahead of God once because he was in his flesh. And it just goes back to my word. You know, launch is my first word for 2017. God's launching us in 2017, but we're to do it in rest. And when I hear God and I listen, and I don't jump ahead of him, and I don't feel like I got to have it now. It's got to be now. I mean, I can't wait for you to send me the man I'm supposed to marry. I'm going to pick him out. I can't wait for you to provide in my checkbook. I got to get out there and work harder. I can't wait for you to fix my kids, so I'm going to do it. I can't wait for you to create success in my life, so I'm going to. You see that's what this message spoke to me today. Moses didn't listen. If he had listened, God didn't tell Moses he was going to do it. He told Moses he was going to use him as a vessel. He came down. God Almighty came down to deliver his people. But Moses thought it all rested on him. It all rested on. We're his vessel. With Christ, with man, this is impossible. With God, all things are possible. So I just want to encourage you today. I'm going to get off here for today. I'm not going to talk about the wonderful, wonderful teachings in Matthew, but I just love you guys, and thanks for letting me be transparent with you and sharing what God speaks to me on a daily basis. I love you guys.